Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SB Reacts where today we have ourselves a track from an act named Relentless Pursuit titled Dedication, and if we switch over to here we have ourselves a track here on YouTube. Now this is not the first time I've listened through Relentless Pursuit's work. I've reviewed quite a bit of stuff in the past from them. This track is off of their upcoming 7th album due for release on April 15th of 2026, so we're getting closer and closer as the year goes by. We're going to listen through this track from start till finish, and we're going to hear what we think. We're also going to be giving this song an overall score out of 10 based on various musical criteria at the end, but for now, let's go. Let's do it. Interesting use of filtering there at the low end. I like the pushing of it in the limiter. It's interesting, like there seems like there's kind of a gap in the mid-range of the track there. I can hear some of the bass and sub-drops and stuff like that, and there's like definitely high end there, but it just kind of sounds a little bit hollow.
Right now I cannot look in the mirror.
I like the sci-fi synth sequences going backwards and forwards in the stereo field. I think that's a cool sort of effect with the automation. And the fluttering strings are a nice touch. They contrast with how somber the piano is. No, but that's good. I think that was the third single off of the upcoming album from Relentless Pursuit. I'm going to draw out in April. We're going to talk about this track more in the conclusion. And so welcome to the conclusion, my review of this track from an act named Relentless Pursuit titled Dedication. In this section I'll be supplying an overall song analysis from vocals through to production, as well as any applicable constructive critique, and then finally my general thoughts from a listener's perspective. I should also note here that I've given the song an overall score of 7.5 out of 10, which I feel is a fair score. There was some stuff that I really appreciated within this, and we're going to talk about it more in a moment, but first of all, what do we think this track is about? I think that this track discusses a religious person's relationship with a higher power their dedication to this person despite their previous misdeeds, feeling the need to sort of stay true to this person and find value and virtue in their actions and future. And I think that, you know, that kind of the forgiveness, you know, the evolution of a person as they kind of go towards the light is something that's sort of being discussed here. I think it's a very earnest performance from, you know, Relentless Pursuit here on the microphone. There's this very visceral vocal fry here, and it's incredibly harsh and aggressive, but I think it suits the style of music that we're doing, this kind of hard kind of new metalish kind of stuff, with a wide variety of different interesting instrumental parts that we'll talk about a little bit later on. But just I feel like we have really solid vocal technique, very comfortable in our head and chest voice there. We belt really neatly, and we do this kind of hardcore growled and sort of spoken vocal part around the 125-minute mark, which is just great. It provides a nice sort of note base with the spoken vocals to go alongside the texture of the harsher, grittier vocals. And I think that they amalgamate well. We also just have some more sort of visceral, sort of like noise-oriented parts there for emphasis there, and typically we communicate well, but I also appreciate near the end where we just sort of allow the strings and the piano to sort of cast us out there. We let the instrumental parts have their time in the sun as well. And it's very sort of like stylistically inappropriate for the genre, whilst I think expressing maybe the frustration at themselves for not maybe having shown enough dedication prior potentially, but then their kind of push or emphasis on it now. Their focus is palpable. The track itself is 3 minutes 29, and I feel like it's well fleshed out with a variety of different chorus and verse parts there, as well as guitar solo parts and the string and piano key outro at the end there. You've got enough to keep yourself interested throughout as a listener. It's within that 2 to 4 minute sweet spot as well, which makes things very easy to sort of contain and sort of absorb in a single listen. And yeah, enough instrumental diversity keeps it compelling. The main instruments that I heard within this were the guitar, bass, and drums, as well as the synth sequences that go from either side of the stereo field there, and then finally the piano and keys at the end. So we've got a variety of elements there outside of their functionality or, you know, the core functions. At the start of the track there, we have a kind of very intense tone to the guitars there. This kind of brittle distortion there that's nice and chuggy and works well with power chord elements, as well as with the lead elements, the tremolo picking, working through the majors and minors, exploring the fretboard up high to contrast with some of the lower elements there. I feel like we explore the fretboard and the frequency spectrum well on the instrument. We also have the drums here, which, while I would have liked a little bit more low into the drums there, they still are nice and punchy there. The kicks, the snares, the hi-hats, etc. come through. It's very easy to hear all the different elements of the drum kit as well. And when we have sort of like a mixture of different quarter eighths, triplets, and sixteenths there, we work with a variety sort of like normal time, double time, and half time grooves as well there to establish a change in flow through the piece. And we're very comfortable with our snare fills and other tom parts, I think, occasionally as well with the 30 seconds there. But we also allow space to be able to appreciate the surrounding elements. And we also have these interesting like on-beat as well as syncopated parts for the crashes there. Like the drums are doing a lot of different grooves there, and I just appreciate the variety of different ways we approach the percussion within this to go alongside the focus that's been put on making a really intriguing guitar performance. The bass, I think the bass is kind of resonant in this, but I can't put my finger on it. It's like I can hear that at some points we either have a bass drop or we have like something in the low end that's pushing, and there's like a resonance I think in the sub bass, which is maybe why we tried to sort of hold back a little bit with some of the other stuff like the drums and such. I think typically what we've got going on here is good. Like I like the fact that the bass guitar, when you can hear it, reinforces notes from the guitar progressions. And I think that it's also nice to have the bass allow things to float sometimes without the bass for things to seem more sort of a bit high oriented and therefore, again, as I said, float in a mix. I think when the strings come in certain parts, there's like around the 2 minute 40 mark there's a tension and drama to that with how they kind of hold there, kind of stagnant, but also kind of scary sounding, I suppose. It kind of makes you feel a bit anxious there. That note choice there, highlighting I think because it doesn't go with the root, it goes with like the fifth there. So it's extending that triad and focusing on a note outside of the root, which makes it a bit more kind of intense. When you have the bop, 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 around the 3 minute mark there, it's incredibly, I mean, by proxy of it being different, it's atmospheric there, but you kind of wonder why things are going backwards and forwards. You've had certain elements do the same thing in similar patterns prior to the piece here, but you do get the impression with the fact that it's isolated and focused by itself, even if it does go into those strings and guitars, that you are heading into a different chapter. I think the keys as well, sort of reinforcing a lot of the key triads and sort of within the chord progressions of the piece is good. At the end there, it's a nice foil to the strings with the kind of pass bowing or the kind of like stuff going on there. You know, the piano playing a 1 and 2 and 8th note rhythm that's very sort of steady and reliable. He's got a nice combination of rhythmic elements there. And there's a nice textural foil to a lot of the harder kind of grittier, distorted elements he had prior. And I think time signature wise is a closing point. I don't think we're in 4/4 the entire time. I think we might either be doing polymetric or polyrhythmic stuff. They're adding different beats occasionally. And I just like the fact that we're kind of pursuing a style of, you know, the rhythm, like the guitar playing or the bass playing or the drum playing, where we're not relying on those main quarters or eighths there. It becomes a lot less generic and predictable that way. It shows fluency and sophistication on Relentless Pursuit's part to be able to sort of know when to put those and how to sort of seg them or niche them. I think it's very good. And we even have some sort of like triplet stuff going on with the do-do-do-do kind of good snare, and there's a nice sort of rhythmic use in with the guitars and the snares there as well. I dig it. So there's a lot of effort put into making the performance itself appealing. Thematically, typically sort of around the minor area there, I'm very kind of blunt with that. Even when you have the piano, I mean, like the guitars, the sort of guitars, bass and drums work really well with distortion. They work really well with the minor keys and scales. And we have occasional chromatics, but mostly minor oriented. The string section with the sequences and everything like that reinforces just with different levels of kind of relative intensity and sort of timbre. And yeah, no, I think that when you consider the subject matter, that what we're talking about, the style of vocals, etc., this key choice and the variety of different chord progressions, not allowing us to get too sort of stuck on one bit or another, just kind of chapterizes the piece and makes it a better song. And just generally, it's a really sort of solid performance without a note out of place. The studio recording, mixing and mastering, I think that for the most part, you know, you can hear the different elements in the mix. The bass was a little bit subdued. I think that the kicks could have maybe stood to not have had a cut on the low end there. You can probably still cut the kicks to about 50 hertz and you get a nice bit of thump to them. The reason I said that there was filtering at the start of the piece is because I was unaware that that would be how the track was. And I'm not saying it needs to be full bodied and like sub drops the whole 3.5 minutes. It just seemed that you could have had potentially more sort of low end with the drum kit specifically. And I think I'm just wondering if that was because maybe the sub bass was pushing the limiter a little bit and we weren't sure how to approach it. In general though, you could, as I said, you can hear the guitar, bass, drums. Well, no, not necessarily bass, but the strings, piano and synth elements pretty effectively. Music surrounded you in a stereo field. Things would go backwards and forwards in certain areas there for effect and interest. And nice and loud bit of pumping, sidechaining, bus compression, limiting is handled. Although it still sounded kind of quiet. I'm not sure. I have to just double check whether it's loud in the headphones or quiet in the headphones or not. I'll listen to other sort of stuff after this to kind of feel that out. Ultimately though, there's no other applicable constructive critique aside from what I mentioned about like the lack of low end with like the kit and stuff like that. I think generally this is positive, and I just appreciate that over the time I've been reviewing Relentless Pursuit, they continue to explore more performance or composition oriented opportunities to try different things to increase the technicality, the proficiency of their own performance as musicians. Because as I understand it, they did all the instrumental parts, all the vocals, production, music and lyrics for this. It's a fantastic effort, especially in this day and age where people do kind of rely on artificial elements or like loops or like AI to make their music. This is not the case here, and I have to applaud that. I'm just thankful that the applause feels genuine because of what we've been shown here today. I'm feeling quite positive about it. But anyways, thank you very much for watching my review of this track from an act named Relentless Pursuit titled Dedication. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show them some love via the various social medias and the YouTube page. Stay cool, stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I will catch you in the next SP Reacts. Spiderhands out.